What is up, you guys? It is Jake State Farm here with Atomic Theory, back with another Atomic Chess video. And for today's video, we are going to be going over part 3 of Atomic Chess for Beginners. And in this video, I'm going to be going over an opening that I think is a great option for beginners. I'm going to be showing you a lot of traps that can arise in this opening. And I've specifically got the database open here. 2 players that are lower rated, that are around the newer rating range, so that you'll be able to see just what they end up falling for. And I will give a disclaimer. This line is maybe a bit more advanced than stuff that we've gone over in the past. Like for the first video, we were just going over like the first couple moves, whereas this is going to be way more in depth. I'd say it's probably more, it's for players of any strength, up to, even players that are some of the best in the world could learn from this video, potentially. But I would say it's mainly targeted towards players probably around the 12 to 1600 range. If you have never played Atomic and you're watching this video, it's probably best to go watch some of my other videos first, some of the other Atomic Chess for Beginners videos first, and then maybe you can come back to this one. And it's probably better to have like at least some Atomic Chess knowledge of how explosions work. Again, we go over all that in part 1 if you don't know the rules of Atomic Chess or anything like that. But this one will be a bit more in depth. But I think one of the most important things in Atomic is choosing which opening you're going to play. And for the most part, I think it's best to choose one opening and stick with it for a long time. If you want to become one of the best players in the world, you'll have to learn every opening eventually. But in my personal Atomic Chess career, it's always been easiest to learn one opening at a time for me. I never try to learn more than one at a time. And so especially it's hard to put a number of games on it, but I'd even say like for your first 1,000 games, you should really just try one line as white and maybe try different things as black and see what you like the most. But once you've kind of figured out your white opening, I'd say play it for, a good chunk until you can reach maybe 2,000 with it, unless it's just a terrible opening. I would really recommend just sticking with one opening, and then you'll learn all the lines and the ideas. So I want to briefly go over an opening that I think is pretty underappreciated. I think the win rate doesn't really do it justice here, because there's a lot of traps that players at this level, 1600 and below, are falling for, but they're just not being taken advantage of here. So it starts with knight f3, and as we know from our first video, you either need to respond with f6, d6, or e5. That's why I think knight f3 is a great first move. It's just a very forcing move. And after pawn f6, you can see that in terms of win rate, the best move is e3. This is known as knight f3, e3 spam. And this has some traps in it. For instance, we're threatening to go knight e5, which is threatening this d7 pawn, and after black takes, then we're threatening to go queen h5 and queen d5 with this double attack on d7 and f7, as we showed in the first video. However, as you can see, like if we take away some of these like stronger ratings, like knight c6 and knight h6 both just lose immediately. So like at the very low level, this opening can work as you can win very quickly, which is why I think a lot of players play it and have a good win rate with it, which is by the way, kind of funny that, after knight c6, the most common move is actually bishop c4. Knight e5 is the best move. I don't know, is knight g5 winning? Yeah, knight g5 is maybe technically not forced mate, but close to it. But yeah, as you can see, the most common move is just to play like a normal standard chess move, which is bishop c4 at this level. So, I think this line is totally fine. Like if you've already started playing this, I think it's good. The problem is once you get to 14, 1600 rating range, players start to know this. As you can see, the 2 most common moves here are the 2 best moves by far. And as you play stronger and stronger players, more players are going to know this. And I think it's tough to beat. Say you're a 1400 and you're playing like a 2000. It's going to be really tough to beat them in this opening, just because they're going to know it so well. It's so common. Like if we go over to like more of the higher levels here, you'll see that e3 starts to become a very common move, and people are very well prepped against it. Whereas this line that I'm about to show you, it actually works at the top level as well. Of course, not as much because people do know it, but the move is knight to d4. Okay, and your plan here is very simple. And again, I just want to reiterate, whatever opening you choose, e3 is fine, knight c3 is fine. I'm actually going to release a video. Somebody requested that I go over like every opening just a little bit in one video, so I'm going to try to do that soon. So maybe you'll want to use that video to help you decide which opening you want to play. I'm not saying this is the only opening you should play. I'm just going to give some reasons why I think it's really good at this level, and it also translates to the highest level as well. But there's just so many traps in this line, and I think it's a really great opening for new players to play. And I also think it's just going to throw a lot of players off because, you know, they'll know e3, e6, and some basic defense things there. But in this line, players are a lot less booked up here. So already we can see after knight d4, less than half of the people that get this position at this rating range play the only move to really stay alive. If we go over to the top level here, we'll see that that number jumps to 88%, so double. So everyone, this is pretty rare in atomic chess to get a position on move 2 where literally everyone is playing the same move. But that just goes to show how necessary this move is, knight h6. In fact, I can toggle on the computer, and you can see anything else is +8 for white. Okay, so I won't go too in detail, but basically your threats are knight f5 and knight b5. So if they defend f5, then you go knight b5, and you're attacking this pawn. And if they go, you know, defend b5, then you'll go knight f5 with this double attack here. So really, black has this problem where there's no way to defend f5 and b5. So instead, they play this move knight h6, which is really the only move to stay alive here. And what you're doing is you're defending the f5 square, but you're also threatening knight g4. So say white makes a mistake and goes knight b5 here. Now black just wins after knight g4, knight f2, and there's no way to stop queen takes d1 here. Doesn't matter how many pieces you get over here, you're still getting checkmated. So there are a few moves that you can play here. I've recommended h3 in a previous video, which is one that I think is great for the higher level, but you know, maybe a little bit less intuitive at this level. The move that I'm going to recommend is this most common move of knight f5, after which black just has to take here. You know, otherwise you're taking one of these pawns and going up a bunch of material. And this starts where I would say, you know, white has a few different options. I'm going to show you the line that I'm going to recommend here as white, but white certainly does have a few options here. And the most common move here is knight c3 followed by e3, and both of those moves are totally fine. Also d4 is fine, knight a3 is fine. This position is one that basically, as we saw at this level, less than half the people in this position are going to find knight h6. So already you've already kind of set one trap. They have to find knight h6. You know, of course, a good percentage of them will, but it's still less than half, right? So we've already tested them once, and at this point, the position is pretty much objectively pretty equal. The only thing is black has this slight weakness here. With this pawn on f6, it is blocking the queen from really ever being able to get out on this diagonal here. So we can take advantage of that a little bit. If the queen wants to get out, it pretty much has to come on this diagonal over here. But for the most part, objectively, this is pretty equal. White doesn't have a huge edge. And as you can see, black actually wins this more than white. So you're probably thinking, Jake, why are you recommending a line that's so terrible for white? But I'm about to show you just how many traps there is. So the move I recommend is pawn to e4. And I'm primarily just going to go over these top 3 moves here. Like for instance, e5 and knight c6 both just lose on the spot. A lot of these other moves that black may try are just moves that are just completely losing. So I'm really just going to go over these first 3 moves here. And yeah, just try not to go too far in depth here and to keep it pretty simple. But some of these lines are a bit complicated, so we'll see. Basically, white is you know, these knights are off the board, and white has just played e4 as if to start the game. And kind of maybe unseen threat here for some players from the black side is that we still have this threat of queen h5, queen d5 with this double attack here. So black needs to do something to stop that. So the most common move here is d5. I think a lot of people at this level especially respond to e4 with the move d5 because they want to take here and open up their queen. So we're just going to stop their queen from ever having any threats on d2. And if they play d5, it's generally best in a lot of lines to just always respond with d4. Of course, this rule can be broken, but as you can see, like a lot of players still actually try to take here on e4, and this is just completely lost for black. I think maybe bishop. Okay, so d5 is one. Yeah, just white has a lot of moves here, but for instance, d5, and if they try to go queen d6, we would have bishop b5, which is going to be winning the queen there. They basically can't really stop this pawn from rolling down the board. Like if they go e6, we're still just going to go d6. And of course, they can never take it because it opens up our queen. So yeah, this is pretty much hopeless. If they go bishop d7, we can go here. If they go c6, we can still just push d7, king f7, and then something like queen h5 would be enough for checkmate there. So that's a little bit of a less common move, but as you can see, that's kind of the idea, right? A lot of people want to take on e4, so d4 is stopping any ideas of them coming to, queen takes d2 here. So here you'll see a few moves. One is this move pawn to e5, and here I really like this move of bishop to h6, and there's basically three moves that you'll see. So the threat that we're setting is that we want to play queen h5, but then there's pawn to g6 here, blocking that. So if we go bishop h6 and they take, well, now this is just checkmate. There's no longer a g pawn here to push to g6, and so this is just going to be checkmate on the black king here. Doesn't matter where they run to, we can just come into e8 there. So that's the main kind of trap. The most common move is bishop to b4, followed by pawn to c3. And then it's pretty much an even split between bishop g4 and g6. If they go g6, we can actually make this nice move, bishop f8. And white is pretty much completely winning here. Black's never going to be able to castle. And we'll have some ideas of, say bishop g4 and f3, something like c6. We can just take here. And, I guess we need to be careful of some ideas of queen h4, but we can always go bishop e7. And having a bishop or a knight in the enemy camp like this, we'll turn on the computer here for a second. Yeah, you'll need to practice this position a little bit, get it in some games, and learn how to convert this. But it's completely winning for white. Black is completely crushed here. One idea is like to take this bishop and then maybe get the queen on this diagonal here, try to infiltrate there. You could also start with knight a3, kind of forcing the bishop to take and then go queen b3. But really with this bishop here, white should be able to convert this game pretty easily if they do go g6. They may also go bishop g4 here, after which we would play pawn to f3. And now they actually can take because our queen is blocked from this h5 square. So this bishop g4 move is actually really useful. Well, in this position, white again has a really nice combination where you can go f takes, once again threatening queen h5. Most people will see that and go pawn to h5. But then you can make this really rare move of knight to a3, threatening to come into b5. And, a lot of people actually play f5 in this position, which I believe you could still just go knight b5 here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, knight b5 is still just completely winning there. But a lot of people will actually take this knight. And then we have literally it's already mate. It doesn't seem like it, but you literally already have mate after queen b3. And like I said, just getting play on this diagonal. It is like mate in 15. So, I mean, I guess it's or mate in 13 it's saying. So I guess you have to be somewhat precise. But I guess the idea would go something like if they find the best move of queen e7, you would take here. And if takes with check, you could block with queen e6. They have to take and then queenside castles. And we're going to be getting a rook in here. Yeah, after castles, you would just go. Maybe is it rook d3? Yeah, rook d3. Maybe I messed up at some point. Queen e6 takes. Starting with bishop c4. Okay, so even I messed this position up. But either way, it is forced mate with best play. Probably a position that you need to look at. But this move knight a3 is very rare in this position. This is kind of what I mean, where it's played 3% of the time. I'm curious to see what it is. I haven't checked yet to see what it is at the top level. I'm guessing it's much higher. Okay, I take it back. It's still not common at all. That's never been played. Wow, yeah, knight a3 to me seems like the most logical move here, but it tends to be just a pretty unknown move. You're threatening knight b5, and if they take your knight, which is the obvious move, it's literally forced mate here. So that's kind of a counter to bishop g4 here. This was all after the move bishop to b4. If they start with bishop g4 and then they take your bishop, we could go into a simpler thing right after takes, maybe h5, and then maybe knight a3. And okay, it's a pretty, oh gosh, no, that's no good. Yeah, start with g4 actually to cut off this bishop on h6. So if they happen to find this, which is pretty rare, right? This happens 29% of the time where they play bishop g4, and that was only after this line of d5 and then e5. So it's not the most common thing in the world, but that would be a line that kind of like refutes this. But worst case scenario, it does just end up getting into an equal position after, if they find this best move of bishop g4 and then takes and h5, just remembering this move g4 because we want to block off this bishop that's now opened up since it hasn't yet committed to the b4 square. But okay, this is this bishop h6 idea, and we're going to see this a bunch in this line. It happens so frequently in this line. Okay, let's start to speed through this a bit more. So one other thing, after, if they play d4 and if they play d5 and we respond with d4, instead of going e5, they may just start with bishop g4. And here, a lot of times, black will end up actually messing this up. For instance, the most common move is bishop h5, and then we can once again go bishop h6. And this is not a whole lot of fun for black. Their bishop's not even opened up yet, so they pretty much have to take this. And now we're just up a clean pawn with a pretty, easy to play position here. Okay, what else? So another move that you may see that seems to have a good win rate for black, 71% win rate, is this move g6. This is just pretty much losing on the spot for the black pieces. I think it's like plus 12. Yeah, literally plus 12 here. Again, we're going to make this move bishop h6. And it seems like maybe it doesn't work anymore because they have bishop takes h6. But this is another really common idea in this line, is that our queen is opened up on this diagonal when we play e4. But when we play d4, it also opened up this d2 square to hit all of these, to hit these two diagonals here. And so what's really interesting about this is that this queen sitting on d1 is essentially hitting all of these squares right here. But a lot of players won't realize that. And so queen d2 is the best move, hitting this square on h6. If they do anything, other than one of these three moves, you will just win the game. The only small little trap they have is bishop g4, after which you don't want to play queen h6 because then there would be bishop e2, although maybe you'd have king d2 there, but no reason to get into that. Just play bishop b5, and after they push their pawn, now you can go queen h6, and it's a easy conversion. So that's the only little trap they have. Otherwise, they have to make one of these moves here to stop queen h6. So let's say they go h6, and now this nice move, queen b4, hitting this pawn here. If they castle, we'll just take and go up a bunch of material. And if they play pawn to c5, well, now it's checkmate because we can go queen b5. With the check, they only have one way to stop it. And now we can take here. And again, because we played d4, there's no queen takes d2 ideas. They move their king, and then we'll just have checkmate in a couple moves here. So this is another very common line that you'll see. Again, it starts with this idea of bishop h6. But that's what I mean here, is that black has a 71% win rate after g6, but this move is completely losing if white knows this idea of bishop h6. So I want to drill that home. Bishop h6, you'll also see bishop a6 in some other lines. And there's some knight a3 ideas that are pretty common as well. But I really want to hammer home this bishop h6 idea. It comes up a lot in these lines. And pretty much no matter what, after they play d5, we're going to respond with d4. And almost no matter what they play, other than like knight a6, you're pretty much just going to respond with bishop h6. If pawn takes, you're looking for queen h5 ideas. And if they've already played g6 and bishop takes, then you're looking for queen d2 ideas with some kind of double attack here. Okay, so that's all after this move, pawn to d5. If instead they go pawn to e6, I'm still going to play this move, pawn to d4. And here they have a bunch of ideas, starting with this idea of d5. Once again, you guessed it, we are going to play bishop h6, but it's actually a whole lot stronger now because they played e6 and d5 instead of d5 and e5. Well, this bishop actually can't come out to g4. So the one resource that we saw to stop this in the last line just doesn't work anymore here. So once again, if they take, which is the second most common move, you just have forced checkmate with queen h5. If they don't take, if they play something like f5 or something, you can just take here and go up a bunch of material. That's kind of the threat. If they go bishop b4, thinking that they're sneaky, and then they can now play g6. Once again, we'll have this idea of bishop f8. And again, the computer is saying plus 13. You'd have to learn how to convert this. But generally speaking, a bishop in the enemy camp like this is just completely dominating for whoever has it. So after e6 and d5, it's pretty much completely winning. G6 is actually a nice line if black knows what they're doing. I'll once again start with bishop h6, and after bishop takes, we'll play this move of queen d2. And after the move h6, white actually doesn't really have anything concrete here. In fact, I'm trying to remember if queen d2 or was it something else that was the move here that I was recommending. I actually can't remember off the... Maybe it was queen d2, h4. Is this? No, not this. I'm actually struggling to remember. Okay, so maybe they still have queen b4 and then queen takes b7, although I'm not so sure about that line, to be honest. I'm embarrassed to admit I actually have to look back at what I had prepared here. Yeah, they can just go b5 there. It looks like you have some ideas of queen d2, queen b4, queen takes b7 if you want to go for that. Otherwise, I think knight a3 is a completely fine line just to hold, equality there. I don't remember exactly what the idea was after g6. I had something prepared, but that's all right. Another move is knight c6, and once again, we're just going to play bishop to h6. If they continue with knight b4, then there's only one move to hold the advantage, and it's a pretty rare move to see. It's queen to f3, and if black makes this move bishop d6, trying to infiltrate, we have to play e5. And once again, if g6, we can just go bishop f8, which should be winning for white. If they play pawn to f5, then we'll have bishop g5. That's why it's important that we played queen to f3 instead of queen g4. But yeah, now black is just losing their queen here. I mean, they can go queen f6, but then we'll just take it. And we're threatening mate right now, so they've got to do something about it. If they take the bishop, then we've got queen h5. So once again, this position after knight c6, we will play bishop h6. And if knight b4, just remembering this move of queen to f3. And this is all after the move pawn to e6. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to go over here. We went over d5, knight c6, and we not so well went over this move as well. Okay, c6 was an interesting one as well. So you guessed it, we're going to play bishop h6 here. And here, let's say after bishop b4, it's c3 and pawn to g6. Still just this idea of bishop f8, and we're going to be coming in this way. Okay, that's all after e6. Let's say they go pawn to g6 instead. We will play this move once again of pawn to d4. And I guess this move is a bit less common, so maybe I shouldn't spend as much time on it, but there is actually a lot of fun trappy lines for white here. So if they go bishop h6 after playing g6, we'll just take. And okay, so the most common move here is d5, which is actually transposes into a line that we already looked at, where they start d5, we play d4, g6, bishop h6, and takes. This just transposes. If they play d5, we'll go queen d2, and again we have this double attack here on h6 and b4. Bishop takes h6 here. If they go pawn to h6, there's really not, this is probably the best line that they can play that really stops what you're doing. I like to play this move knight to a3 and then get my bishop out this way and just go for kind of an even position. But there's really no way to get a guaranteed great position. This is kind of one of the only ways that black could play to really stop all of your traps and ideas. But as you can see, it's only been reached a very small percentage of the time. I mean, oftentimes you don't even see this move g6. And if you do, only 28% of the time you see bishop h6, and after takes, still pretty rare to see pawn to h6 there. But this is definitely the move I'd recommend from the black side. So we looked at d5 and h6, and then d6 is an interesting trap. We already played bishop h6, so now we're going to play bishop a6. And it doesn't matter how they take. Let's say they take with the knight here. Then we'll have this idea of queen d2, hitting this again. Once again, they have to go pawn to h6. And now we can play this move queen to a5, threatening this pawn here. And this is after taking with the knight. If they want to stop this, they have to play b6. But then there's just mate after queen d5. Let's say they go e6, and then there's just queen c6 because there's no longer a knight here. And if we look at the other way, saying they took with the pawn instead, once again we'll go queen d2, and after h6 and queen a5, now the knight defends this square, so there's no longer this mate idea, but there's no longer a pawn to stop us from taking on c7. So you know, and actually some people may try to go knight a6 to get the knight out, and then we'd actually have this idea again of queen d5 and queen c6. So lots of fun traps there after d6. After c6, this may be actually my favorite trap. You're going to play queen g4 this time. Queen d2 just doesn't really work because after h6, there's really no great way to get in here. Like if queen a5, they can just take. And if queen b4, they could do something like d6. There's really no great ways over here. But instead, you can play this move queen to g4, threatening this pawn on d7. And if they block it, now we'll go queen f4 with this double threat here. Black only has one way out of this. You see they find it most of the time of queen a5. But I want to show you something really interesting in this position. The move I would recommend is b4, because if the queens come off the board here, you want your pawns pushed as far as possible, not really your pieces. But I'm going to go over all these. After pawn to c3, I believe the only move to hold equality here is queen to f5. But you can see it's found less than half the time here, right? Sometimes people try to play d6, and now we just go queen h6, and there's no way to stop the queen from coming into one of these squares here. If you go queen h5, threatening to come down here, you just go ahead and check them. The reason why queen f5 is so important is because you're pinning the queen against this pawn here. So that's after c3, but same thing after knight c3. Notice how the queen f5 is actually like a very rare move here. And once again, like we see, like you pretty much have to find queen f5 here. Otherwise, you're just toast. Like queen g5, a lot of people play that. And people make the mistake of taking here. Just go queen d6. I know it looks scary, but you're threatening to explode the king. If they come down here, white just wins the game immediately. And so my recommended move is b4. And once again, it's split 50-50. And you'll see that black is winning a lot of these games. Like, you know, after queen g4, white loses a lot, but like black will normally fall into that trap. Like most games, you will just have checkmate here. But again, I don't want to go too far into that because that is after this kind of sideline of g6 anyway. The main point of this video is just to show you that, you know, even an opening like this that some may look at and say like, you know, oh, after you play knight f5, like, you know, if knight takes here, like black actually wins most of the time. Even after e4, it seems pretty good for black. But we looked at these common moves, d5, e6, and g6. And most lines, most players at this level are falling for a trap. And the thing I love about this is that even if they don't fall for the trap, white is almost never worse than any of these lines. So the reason why black is scoring well here is really just because white continues to play this line incorrectly. And like I said, these moves e5 and knight c6 are just completely lost. e5, you just come here, and there's no way to stop this. If king here, you go here. f5, you just take, and it's the same thing. And after knight c6, well, once again, we'll have this double attack here. And we see this pattern of this knight not really actually being able to defend our queen coming into d5 with the double attack. So I just, you know, there's some other minor options that black has here. But if you end up deciding to play this opening, just remember the main ideas are no matter what they do, d5, e6, or g6, we're going to respond with this move pawn to d4. And our main threat is bishop h6. We've got some ideas of queen d2 as well to come in with a double attack here or here. And then in some sidelines, there will also be bishop a6 ideas, some knight a3 ideas, some ideas of maybe queen b3 in the future as well. But white actually has a whole lot of ideas here. And if black is not careful, black can be in a whole lot of trouble here. And I really think this is a great opening for new players. When I started playing it, I was able to win a lot of free games against 2,200 plus players that didn't know it. And sure, there's plenty of players that do know the traps as well. But let me just, I know in a lot of my games I've seen it, but real quickly before I end the video, I guess I just want to show this off. So remember I said G6 is completely lost for black here. And notice how it's actually the most common move at the top level, which is honestly just incredible. It doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, it's literally plus 12 after bishop h6. If black is to take here, white just simply has queen d2. If white knows what they're doing, 90% win right here. Queen d2, black's got to play h6, and then queen b4. I mean, literally a 93% win rate. White is winning this every time if they actually know what they're doing. I think the problem with this opening is that often white just doesn't know the resources that they actually have. So whether it's this opening or another one, I encourage you to find an opening that's fun, find an opening that has a whole bunch of traps that you think are interesting. And because most importantly, what's going to keep you coming back to Atomic Chess more and more is finding something that you love, finding something that you truly enjoy to play. So this is just kind of some inspiration for a particular line that I think, works quite well for new players. But feel free to play any opening that you want, as long as you have fun with it. And as always, I appreciate y'all's support. It's been great on the channel lately. We've had probably our best week ever on the channel, so it's been a whole lot of fun. I've been really enjoying just pumping these videos out for you guys. Definitely let me know down in the comments what you want to see for part 4 of this series, Atomic Chess for Beginners. We'll probably definitely go back to something that's a bit simpler as well, just to help players that have maybe never played before, something like that. But anyway, appreciate y'all's support, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace out.